Save the Semantics, episode 368. It is March 27th, 2026. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Friday evening as we approach the weekend. I'm going to try my best to record at least once a week, as I kind of have in the past. I know that I was going pretty crazy for some portions of the year last year, especially when like the playoffs started to kind of kick off. Maybe the frequency will pick back up again once we hit that time. But right now we're kind of we're approaching the postseason pretty soon. There's about less than 10 games remaining for each of the teams, so that's exciting. Again, my thoughts regarding the Warriors have mostly persisted, right, in regards to just the fact that it's a little disheartening kind of where they're at. They are like solely stuck in this sort of, I don't know if you want to call it purgatory, kind of in the play-in position right now. They've pretty much owned the 10th seed at this point because they're a little far from Portland and the Clippers. I don't think either of those two teams are going to fall back, and the teams below them all tanking. So they are in a tough position. It's one of those things where where I'm like, I'm okay with there not being any play-in game, honestly, because the Warriors are going to have to win too. I just don't really like our chances of that happening. I don't really like them having to go through that. History has not really been the best for the Warriors when they've been in that position. And I also am someone who is just wanting the season to be over, honestly. I've talked about this, but I just do not really want there to be... I just don't really see a future, at least going into this postseason, of any sign of like progression or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I just want the season to end. Of course, I'll watch the game because they'll either be playing Portland or the Clippers. I would rather take on Portland, I would say, just because of their youth and maybe some of their inexperience. But they do have some vets, right? But also, they have not fared very well against them this season. Just their length and their athleticism has been kind of their kryptonite throughout this season. So I don't like our chances against either of those teams. So we'll get there when we get there. There's still a little bit of time before like the final standings are solidified. But I don't really have a ton of hope necessarily riding into this. But yeah, there's, I think instead of lamenting over the fact that this has been sort of a lost season, I think it's better to just move on and enjoy the other teams that have been fun to watch. The Hawks coming up and, being kind of one of the surprise teams going into the second half of this season. Detroit's kind of ascension all throughout this season has been exciting to watch. And, I think a lot of people are not expecting a lot from them during the playoffs necessarily because of, this is really their second season having some semblance of success, which I think is still really impressive. But I think a lot of teams and a lot of people are not necessarily really giving them a ton of stock because of the fact that they haven't really done a lot yet, right? This is going to be kind of their second look at what might be, what might be some form of long form success, right? Also, Cade's kind of lingering injury. We're not exactly given a timeline regarding his collapsed lung, and how much that's going to, how much time that's going to put him out for. But it sounds like he's going to be out at least through the regular season. And it's probably, it's not exactly certain when he's going to come back. So that's also another question mark. On top of, the fact that they haven't, this is their second season actually having some form of success. So I think it'll be interesting to see, how they fare going into the first round. Like, even when they face off against whoever is going to be in the 8th seed, those teams, I think, are, I think a lot of people are going to give those teams some credence. Like, you got like the Sixers, the Hornets, some other teams that have a bit of, have some adversarial pieces. I think the Sixers, especially with Embiid and Paul George coming back, I think you kind of want to give a little bit of respect to them in terms of what they could potentially, what kind of threat they could be against this young Detroit team. Here's something that I'm going to have to get used to, is being in public spaces when recording. Right now, I'm in Central Park, which is my park now for the time being, and it's gonna take some getting used to, for sure. I'll need to kind of check to see what the audio looks like, and I might actually have to do a little bit of editing, doing some post recording work and stuff like that. So we'll see how this goes. I haven't really had the chance to record yet out here, so this is a trial, but you live by trial and error. Anyways, as I was saying, I think the East in particular is going to be very interesting. It's so funny how there was this conversation about how packed the West is and everything like that. I think some of the best teams are in the Western Conference, whether it's OKC, San Antonio, Denver, like those teams that are there. But if you do comparisons of like record to record, the East actually has better records across the board, going down to those play-in teams. Right now, I think Orlando is in the 10th seed or like in the 9th seed, and they have a above 500 record. The worst team in the Western play-in field right now is the Warriors, and they're below 500. So I know that's not exactly the most apt comparison. It's not exactly the most measurable. But I do believe that it gives kind of a sense of, I don't know, the East is actually not as weak as previously discussed, right? I think that, again, a lot of the conversation is regarding the best talent in the West, kind of does overpower the East in some instances, but record to record, it really is not. The East is actually better this year around, and I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I think that speaking of the West, I like some of the matchups that might come out of the playoffs in the first round, but I'm actually pretty intrigued by the Eastern Conference matches because of there is some volatility between those play-in teams. You got like Miami, Philadelphia, Orlando, Charlotte, like all of those teams. There's like this interesting X factor going into them. With like Philly, it's their health, it's Embiid's availability. Like everything kind of hinges on that. The Hornets have had this resurgence. They've been one of the best teams, kind of in the second half of this season. You got, Orlando has had an incredibly rocky season, and there's a lot of question marks about them. There's some health issues regarding them as well. Does the Franz Paolo combo actually work with them? We still don't know. We still don't know if it works, because neither of them have been on the floor together like this season, like at all. And then you got Miami, who I don't even, like, what am I supposed to, you got Bam 83-point game, 83 pointers, but I just don't really, I don't know what exactly to expect from them. They're just like, okay, I don't know. They're just kind of honestly a bit of a throw-in team. Like, I have not liked this team. I have not, like, I don't have anything against their, like, I don't dislike any players on that team. I just find them so unbelievably boring, and I'm just so tired of them constantly trying to do the same thing over and over again. They have not had that same run as they did in that Cinderella run in 2023. They have not been able to replicate that for 3 years now, and they've been stuck in the play-in as much as the Bulls have, and they have not gotten the same amount of flack, right? And I think they deserve a lot of flack, like just the fact that they had some postseason success, but it's a few years removed from that now. They don't have Jimmy Butler, they don't have the same, those same personnel that allowed them to get to that point. It's just not the same thing, and they are out of all of the teams in the NBA, they are the least interesting team right now. And I know that's kind of a wild take, because there are like worse teams, and there are teams that, there are some really bad teams in the league, but with all of them, there is something interesting going on. I feel the Kings are terrible. They are awful. But that's to the point where it's like you are almost fascinated by how their front office and ownership group runs. Like, it is a absolute dumpster fire. They do have a chance at a high draft pick, but it's almost this, you're just almost like constantly questioning the decisions they make, and that honestly is more interesting than whatever the Heat is doing. You know what I mean? There's some upside to the younger teams. Indiana's going to come back and be a good team. The Jazz are very intriguing. Who else is in kind of the lower tier? Washington, they have some interesting things going on with the Trae Young and Anthony Davis. Like, there's a lot of interesting things going on with those bad teams, and the Heat are just kind of, what are they doing, right? It's just, they have, some competence. They win some games, but then they lose some games horribly. They're stuck in the middle. They're stuck in the middle where the Bulls have been. And I think there's just a little bit of that legacy attached to them, which I don't know if it's really even fair to be granted, because they haven't had that level of success for years now, right? So who knows? We'll see what that, we'll see if they can get out of the play-in this year like they have in the past few, but I'm not really expecting too much from them. Okay. A lot of basketball thrown in there. There's a lot of games going on tonight, which I will try my best to catch up on some. I wanted to just talk a little bit and just give some quick updates on kind of what's been going on. As you can probably hear, I don't know how much is getting caught on the audio. Again, I'll need to double check. I'll probably need to do some editing, do some actual editing. But, it's been a little over a month now since I've moved out here, and it's been good. I think the biggest, obviously lifestyle change and routine and all that stuff, all these things that I've already kind of talked about previously. But I do think another thing is just having like a different approach to just like everyday kind of, day to day kind of thing. Um, you know, whether it's in regards to my job or, how I just sort of handle things on my own. These are all things that is is becoming, is becoming a lot more familiar to me, but it's like I'm like getting used to another part of myself, right? Being in a different space and everything. This was something, that I've been sort of thinking about for a long time in terms of, making a move and trying something pretty drastically different. Again, as I said before, it's not like this huge departure. It's not a huge risk necessarily because I had thought this through pretty carefully. But it is a bit of a risk for me. It's like a smaller risk for me. It's something that I'm not used to. It's something about stepping out of my comfort zone. And it's allowed me to kind of explore some new things here and there. I mean, again, I've barely scratched the surface. I've mostly been kind of resorting to my daily schedule in terms of, working, going to work, going into the office and stuff like that, along with, whatever time I do have to, in my free time, whether it's exploring different neighborhoods and stuff like that. But it's about just like trying something pretty new, while also, tapping into something that I'm already kind of familiar with, which is, just kind of testing the waters, right? It's maybe not diving in, but, testing some things here and there. I haven't really had too much of a chance on, weekends to, just because of just work and everything. Work's taken up quite a bit of time over the last month or so, but just like trying out different things, whether it's like food or looking at stuff. I've barely scratched the surface, you know what I mean? And I think once I do have a little bit of more time, to kind of leverage to do other things, like I feel like that's going to open up things even more, and I'm really excited to explore that. I think one of the things that has been really fun on the times that I have been able to spend is just trying food, right? I'm not someone who I would consider myself to be like an avid like foodie or anything like that, but I do really enjoy trying different things. And I think that, where I previously lived, I was kind of limited. There weren't like a ton to really try out. And most of the places that I've already been to, it's like, yeah, I've already done it, right? And being here, it's a whole different ball game. It's not even it's not even comparable. And so that's like another thing that I've been kind of thinking about in terms of how I want to, maybe use this podcast is maybe to talk about some of the things that I've experienced here and there, right? Whether it's trying out different food and, seeing different things, like those are things that I've been thinking about trying to incorporate into this podcast, along with the things that I already talk about, including gaming and obviously basketball. So yeah, that's something that I've been really considering just expanding on as I spend more time here. Obviously, it's not going to all come to me all of a sudden immediately. Like, this is going to be a gradual thing. This is a gradual experience. I'm not going to immediately find something that I'm going to latch onto. I'm going to just try to, try out some stuff and see kind of where it takes me. And I have to kind of give myself a little bit of patience, right? Of course, I'm very eager to want to do these things, join groups and stuff like that. But I've really only just got here, and based on some of the things that I've read and people that I've talked to, like, it's really not, I think it would be a lot to expect, like, an immediate sort of whoa, like, come to I don't know, you don't come to like a gospel moment, or this like huge like realization moment. Oh my god, like this is like the craziest, like that's not, I don't want to go into living here as this like transcendent experience, because I think that would be overdoing it, overselling it, right? Like, people do this thing all the time. People move out here every day. It's not this crazy novelty, right? Like, this is like one of the most famous places in the world. I'm not doing anything new necessarily, but I have to find, I'm living my own experience. I'm living my own life, and I should not be trying to replicate someone else's life for my own pleasure and my own good. And I think for myself, the best experiences are going to come with a little bit of patience and a little bit of, testing things out. It's not going to be like, not every experience is going to be amazing. I think I have to just sort of be like, expecting the unexpected. Like, there's good things that will come out of being patient and just sort of sticking through things. So that's kind of where I'm at currently. Again, I think right now I've tested some things here and there in terms of, I would say, on like the food front. Like, that's probably been the thing that I've enjoyed the most being out here so far, and it's probably going to be the thing that I enjoy the most as I continue to be here. But there's plenty of things out there that I have yet to experience, and I'm excited to just delve into that once I do have a little bit more time on my hands, and really trying to carve out this kind of new life for myself. And it's very exciting. And I think there's a lot of possibilities kind of being out here. Yeah, I'm only getting started, and just wanted to do a quick little update on that end and how things have been going. So, the podcast might look a little different, or I might be just trying to do some different things with it, in terms of the topics that I talk about and stuff. Obviously, it's not going to deviate that much, because I'll still be talking about the things that I enjoy the most. But I do think that I'll probably try to incorporate some other things as well, since I'm out here, might as well take advantage of it. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks for listening as always. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.